Hello again, everyone. Edwin Leonard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about Mars transiting the 8th house in a natal chart. Now, if your house size is average size at 30 degrees, then the average transit will be for approximately 2 months. But that is if and only if Mars is direct only during that time. However, if your house size is larger and or Mars is retrograde at any point during the transit, then it will be in your house for a longer period. Well, anyway, people, first thing I look at when Mars transits one's 8th house, there could be obviously a much more emphasis on sex, matters pertaining to your sexual partner. You might be feeling more erotic during this period. You might be feeling more sexual. Your libido could be much stronger during this period. If you are unattached and you are not in an intimate relationship, this might be a time because Mars is about initiative and enterprise. It might be a time where you may embark start anew, embark on a sexual relationship or initiate one. Now, also, it could be a period where the times with a sexual partner, if you are attached to one, if you are in an intimate relationship, they might be a little bit more contentious and maybe even acrimonious than usual, maybe a little bit more combative. Sexual partner might be a little bit more aggressive than usual, more assertive. This could be a time where you might take that leadership role in a sexual relationship if you are not if you're the more passive one, you might surprise your sexual partner during this time and express maybe a little bit more dominance, and you might more assert yourself a little more than usual. Now, keep in mind too that the 8th house is about death. This could be a lot of times this is about the initiation of a figurative death, ending maybe a relationship, for example, an intimate relationship. It could be a time where divorce proceedings could begin. But remember that Mars also does rule firearms, and also the 8th house is death. So it could increase the chance by a minuscule amount of possible death during this time in a violent or volatile one. And I'm sorry that I know that a lot of you out there don't like to hear these things about death in the 8th house, but I'm just speaking what I believe to be the truth. So, I mean, that it could represent that, but also, but in most cases, of course, that won't happen. Mars duration is only about 2 months on average in a house, and many people have many transits by Mars in that house, and nothing happens. But I just feel marginally it could increase that chance. So anyway. Another thing too is there might be some battles maybe connected with a will or an inheritance during this time. If it's a time where maybe you felt, for example, you had more an inheritance that you should have had more, I should say, coming to you by way of an inheritance and you didn't receive it, this might be the time where you decide to speak up or contest a will possibly. It could also be the time where you might initiate one as well, especially if you're in your latter years. You might decide if you've been procrastinating, say, on constructing a will, maybe this is the time where you actually do begin the process of a will. This also could be a time, remember that Mars is about being impetuous and impulsive. And keep in mind that it could be the 8th house could be connected with credit. So if you try not to be too impetuous or impulsive as far as credit card purchases go, because this could be a time due to being impulsive, you might wind up being a little bit more extravagant in this area than usual. So that is something to look at as far as Mars traversing your 8th house in your natal chart. Now, also, when you look at the eighth house, it's about transformation as well. So, this could be a period where you might decide to initiate some kind of transformation. It could be a time where you become more active, maybe in something just simple like recycling, for example, or in making and maybe making something out of old items, maybe turning the shoebox into a humidor or taking a bicycle crank into an oven rotisserie. I'm being facetious, of course, people, but you understand what I'm saying. It's about transformation, regeneration, and rebirth. And this could also be a time when you look at the eighth house, it does correspond with Scorpio and the phoenix rising from the ashes. So this could be a time, it shows how you cope with adversity or any kind of strong loss in your life. And this could be more emphasized in this period than usual. And also, you might decide to speak your mind a little more in matters connected with shared resources as well. If you feel that somebody is claiming to have more than they should as far as shared resources go, this might be the time that you may speak your mind and say, well, this is actually, there's a little more of a percentage that actually does belong, that it is actually is mine as well. So those are some things to look at as far as this transit goes. Now, this could be, or I should say, as far as shared resources go, it could be something where you feel that maybe somebody is taking more than what they should, and those shared resources are more, it seems like, are more yours than it is the other people's, is really what I'm saying. So anyway, it's also important to look at the sign that Mars is in during this transit, as this could flavor the transit to the eighth house. Let's say, for example, that Mars is in Gemini for either the majority or the whole time of the transit to the eighth house. Now, this could indicate much energy connected with versatility and perhaps variety in the eighth, and it really, as far as eighth house matters go, and this could be connected with shared resources or maybe activities connected with a sexual partner. Let's say, for another example, that Mars is in Cancer for either the majority or the whole time of the transit to the eighth house. Now, this could indicate some fluctuation and vacillation, perhaps in energy, because it's in temperamental Cancer. Now, being with the eighth, it could indicate maybe being moody about maybe making a strong change or transformation in your life, for example. And it could be also matters connected with sex as well, maybe being in the mood one minute and then right shortly after not being in the mood, so to speak. Also, it's important to look at the aspects that are made from Mars transiting the eighth house to your natal planets and points, as this could impact the transit. And let's say, for example, that transiting Mars in the eighth house is making a square in conjunct or opposition to your natal Neptune. Well, this could indicate perhaps some problems with direct action. There might be some ambivalence and confusion going on at this time with you, and being in the eighth, it might be connected or pertaining to an intimate relationship, and maybe even some decisions connected with eighth house matters, maybe something connected with the supernatural or astrology. For example, maybe you were trying to start an astrology class, or maybe starting your own astrology lessons or doing charts, for example. Also, let's take another example. Let's say that transiting Mars in your natal eighth house is making a sextile or trine to your natal Pluto. Well, this could be propitious perhaps for using energy to make a positive change or transformation in your life, and being in the eighth, perhaps in connection with shared or others' resources. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Mars transiting the eighth house in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about Mars transiting the ninth house in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.